How's it going, YouTube? My name is LBNinja7, your resident Mistweaver Monk and favorite WoW healing YouTuber. And guys, today we're going to be learning how to play Discipline Priest. I'm going to try to give you guys everything that I know about the class to help you get started, and basically a beginner's guide to Discipline Priest, because it is such a fun class to play. It has so many strengths as a healer, and I think that it will be a big player in this upcoming meta with the new Holy Paladin nerfs. So first, let's talk about a couple of its strengths. Well, it excels in AoE healing, it excels in tank protection, it excels in utility, and it excels in damage. So it kind of already has all the tools necessary to be a meta healer, but now it is getting a pretty good sizable, it's only 4% extra atonement healing, but it is a very solid buff coming into next week. So I want to give you guys everything that I know, like I said, to get you guys started. So let's go ahead and start talking about the basics of Discipline Priest, and I will start that by just showing you a nice starter talent tree. So this is a great talent tree when you're first starting off, and as you can see, I do have this bottom left talent taken, but this talent tree gives you a lot of very powerful buttons to press, but it doesn't bloat your action bars. It just gives you the nice right amount of buttons to fill up your action bar, but feel like every single button you press is impactful, because the best thing about Discipline Priest is that you have a lot of passive abilities that are very impactful, and they are kind of playstyle defining. Once you get more of the hang of Discipline Priest, you can kind of start playing around some of these powerful passives, and really you can just start pushing your skill ceiling higher, because these passives kind of do change your playstyle. So first, let's talk about Twilight Equilibrium. This is very important. It obviously is a keystone talent, but how it works is your damaging holy spells increase the power of your next damaging shadow spells, and vice versa. So as long as you can alternate back and forth reliably or semi-reliably, you can just basically have a 15% damage buff. So also, you do play around Harsh Discipline. I just gotta decline that. So your next penance, which is one of your both damaging and healing abilities, we will get into it. Basically, you channel onto a target and shoot out a bunch of bolts. This can fire up to 3 additional bolts and cost no mana, but you have to cast 4 smites or Mind Blast or Power Word Solaces between each of your penance casts. So as long as you're casting 4 of your base damaging spells between each penance, your next one can fire 2 additional bolts and do more damage or more healing, depending on how you choose to use it. Now, we also do kind of play around Twist of Fate. This is a very powerful ability where it says, after damaging or healing a target below 35% health, you gain 10% increased damage and healing for 8 seconds. So all you have to do is really think about if a pack is getting close to death, if one of those enemies is the lowest health, you just want to target that for a second, get that damage buff so that you can kill the rest of the pack faster. And you are excellent with execute damage, because you do actually have kind of a semi-execute. Shadow Word Death, that bottom line there, it says damage is increased by 150% to targets below 20% health. So that's a great way to proc your Twist of Fate. Just get a bit of extra damage to kind of help top people up before you move on to the next pack. You also have Power Word Life. Now, Discipline Priest didn't used to always have this spell, but now in Shadowlands, this has just basically boosted them so much, because the spot healing once one person dropped low is kind of an issue on Discipline Priest. Now it's not, because Power Word Life, how it works is if your ally is below 35% health, which is the same threshold there with Twist of Fate, it will do 400% more healing, and it reduced the cooldown from 30 seconds down to 10 seconds. So this is just a spot heal in a pinch, when your tank drops low, when one of your DPS stands in a swirly, or a big slam happens, a big slam of damage, top yourself up or one person up, and then you'll have that boosted damage to kind of top everyone else up with your damage. So I keep mentioning damage when I'm talking about healing, so what do I mean? Well, Atonement is kind of like the passive that Discipline Priests have. It's basically, think of it as a buff. It's a buff that you put on your allies, and while that buff is on your allies, any damage that you do is directed back to that ally as a conversion into healing. Right now, it says your spell damage heals all targets affected by Atonement for 36% of the damage done, but it's about to be changed to 40%. So go ahead and check and see if that change has already happened for you. It will happen on August 8th or August 9th, depending if you're NA or EU, but this is primarily how you do your healing. But what's really cool about this class is that you basically do a ton of healing while pressing a bunch of damage buttons. It's kind of why I've been drawn to classes like Mistweaver in the past, because I feel like a DPS that's just doing a lot of healing. And you do that based around the power of Shadow Covenant. So like I said, you'll have a lot of light spells and a lot of shadow spells, and Shadow Covenant is just such an amazing ability, because how it works is it turns some of your light spells into shadow spells, and then it buffs all of your shadow damage. So what you can do is you can apply Atonement to everyone in your group, and then you can pop Shadow Covenant and then just spam however many shadow spells you can get off and get so much healing out. And then not to mention, you can extend that with this talent, Embrace Shadow, but then your Atonement heals for 20% more when activated by shadow spells. So whenever you have your Shadow Covenant available, you will just do so much damage, so much healing, that you basically feel invincible, and it's up every 30 seconds. So it's just such an amazing class because of that, and it offers a very fun playstyle. Hey guys, this is post-editing LB Ninja, but I forgot to mention the stat weights. The stat weights are super important. You're gonna wanna go, obviously, Intellect first, because that just boosts all your damage and healing, but you want Haste next, because that increases the amount of cast that you can get off in all of your damaging and healing windows. And then from there, you wanna get Crit and Verse, because those also boost your damage, which also boosts your healing. But then you do also want some Mastery, but that is your least important stat in Mythic Plus, because it just doesn't give you damage, which damage converts to healing as Disc Priest. So all of your damage boosting stats are the most important. Let's get back to the video. But one thing that you need to get into the habit of when playing Disc Priest is you actually do want to line up these abilities. So these are my Mind Blast charges, these purple bars, and these are my Holy Radiance charges. Now, Holy Radiance is a very insane ability. How it works is you channel it, and then after you've cast it, it'll apply Atonement to 5 of your allies. It'll apply it to the entire group, so the entire group will have Atonement. Now, it doesn't last that full 15 seconds. It lasts for 60% of that time, but this gives you plenty of time to top your group up, especially if you're in a Shadow Word Covenant, or if you're in a Shadow Covenant window. You can get so much damage out to heal everyone, but it's basically just your AoE way to apply Atonement. However, they've recently buffed the healing that it does, and it does a ton of healing. So it's just, it'll do a nice chunk of healing at the start, but then apply Atonement so you can really start getting your damage out instead of having to single target every person and apply Atonement that way. So let's go and press it. Let's show you guys what Atonement even looks like. So if I press Power Word Radiance, I healed 5 allies for a nice chunk, and then I applied Atonement to myself, and then look down here at my health bar. My damage converts into healing. Oh, I was pressing a heal spell on myself. So you see there, on my character, I am doing healing based on the damage that I'm doing. So where it gets really cool is when you pair it with spells like Shadow Covenant. So let me just press Shadow Covenant, and then you'll see my Penance Bolt turn purple, because that'll turn into a Shadow Penance, and my Halo will turn purple because it'll also do shadow damage. So watch me press Shadow Covenant. Now all of my shadow damage is boosted. I fire shadowy penances. I do a shadowy halo. So it just boosts your damage, and you can get a lot of damage off that way. So as long as we're in our Shadow Covenant and we have Atonement on ourselves, we do so much healing, so much healing. So let me go ahead and just talk you through some of our damaging buttons and just some of our heal buttons, because a lot of you probably thought that probably be the best way to start this video, but I really wanted to give you guys the foundation of how some of the intricacies work before we actually get into the spells themselves. So like I said, Power Word Radiance is just an AoE heal, but it's an AoE way to apply your Atonement. So a lot of times you'll apply this at the start of a pack and then use it until all the Atonements fall off, and then use it again, or wait until a little bit of damage comes out, since it now does a big heal, and then apply it again, do more damage, heal up the rest of the group that way. So Power Word Radiance is one of your main spells. It is your primary way to apply Atonement. Now you also have, let's go through some of the damaging buttons. So we have Penance, which is really cool because you can either target an ally with it. So if I targeted an ally with it, then you basically just channel some bolts that go out and heal that single target. But where it gains most of its strength is when you have Atonement on the entire party, and we use penance on an enemy because it can be an enemy or an ally. And when we target that person, it's just such a great way to get so many atonement procs off. It does so much healing that way. It's always best to use it that way and use it for damage. But if you really need to top up a single target, it's totally fine to press penance on that single target and just do big chunks of healing that way. Now, our main damaging abilities are Mind Blast, Purge the Wicked, and Smite. Now, Smite is very easily spammable. It's just if you have no other buttons to press, as long as you have Atonement on everyone, it's just your best way to just keep that going, keep that healing going in the downtime between your little ramps. But then Mind Blast is your chunkier hit. You have 2 charges of it, and it's shadow damage always. So you want to save these for your Shadow Covenant windows. And then also, like I said, you do have Penance, that is a damaging ability, but the other one is Purge the Wicked. Now, Purge the Wicked is a dot that we apply to people, and it is probably your most important damaging ability, because as you're running up to a pack, say your tank is just pulling this pack, you want to be applying your Purge the Wicked to everyone, because then once we put our Atonement on our allies, all those dot ticks just add extra healing that's happening. And then you also have some other synergies with it, like if I were to Mind Blast this target that has Purge the Wicked on, it'll consume a stack. And then if I Shadow Word Death it, it'll consume 6 stacks and make them activate instantly. So it's just very important for you to have on most of the targets when you're coming into a pack. Now, there is one synergy with Penance. If you Penance a target with your Purge the Wicked, it'll spread to 2 more targets. So now all of a sudden you don't have to apply it to all 5 of these dummies, you can apply it to 3, and then your first penance will spread it to the back 2. So basically your damage rotation is, as you're coming up to a pack, you want to be applying Purge the Wicked to everyone, and then you want to press your Power Word Radiance to apply Atonement to your allies. And then from there, you want to do as much damage as possible. You're in that healing window where you have that Atonement on everyone, so all your damage is going to be healing. So how do we do the most damage? Well, it kind of goes around, like I said, Shadow Covenant, but also Schism. I haven't talked about this yet, but Schism applies a dot to enemies, or to an enemy. You pick one enemy and it'll apply a dot. So after you have your Purge the Wickeds on everyone, you pick the highest health person, you apply Schism to them, and I say highest health because you're going to be doing a lot of damage to them, so you want them to stay alive as much as possible because you're going to be doing the most healing by damaging them. So it applies that dot, and it increases all of your spell damage to that target by 15%. So if we press Schism, we're going to be doing 15% boosted damage, as well as it's also going to have a dot. And then if we press Shadow Covenant, we're going to be doing boosted shadow damage as well, 25% boosted shadow damage. And then as long as we have like one or both of our Mind Blasts ready, if we have our Penance ready, then we'll have plenty of buttons to press to do as much damage as possible while we still have those Atonements on people, while we're still in that Shadow Covenant ability. So let's just do a very basic little Shadow Covenant and Schism rotation. So I want to apply Shadow Covenant first, and then Schism, and then just do as much damage as possible using Mind Blast and Penance. So here we go. We're going to Shadow Covenant, we're going to Schism the target, we're going to make sure we have our dot on, and then we're going to Mind Blast, Penance, Mind Blast, and then we just did so much damage. I didn't even have Atonement on myself, but you guys see how much damage we can do in very short amounts of time during those cooldowns, that it just makes it so worth it to line up those cooldowns. Also to mention, Schism is on a 24-second cooldown, so not exactly lined up with our 30-second cooldown of Shadow Covenant, but it's always worth it to line those abilities up because it just adds so much, not just to your damage, but to your healing. So now let's go ahead and talk about how we utilize some of these passive buffs. So like I said, Twilight Equilibrium is excellent because it just gives us 15% boosted healing, but we have to be alternating between light and, or I'm sorry, I keep saying light spells because I play other games that have similar healers, but holy spells and shadow spells. And then we also want to try and get in 4 smites, power word solaces, or mind blasts between our penances. Now, the cool thing about Shadow Covenant is it lasts for 15 seconds, meaning that we can fit in 2 penances in that Shadow Word Covenant. So what we want to do is we want to make sure that that penance is boosted. So how do we do that? Well, since we're going to be pressing Shadow Covenant, it's going to turn that penance into a shadow spell. So what I like to do is right before I come into my Shadow Covenant ability, I like to, 1, make sure my whole group has Atonement, because obviously we want to apply that before coming into that ability, or before coming into our Shadow Covenant, because we don't want to waste any of our Shadow Covenant time doing Power Word Radiance. So we're going to Power Word Radiance, and then I'm going to press Smite, because that will make our next damaging shadow spell do more damage through Twilight Equilibrium. So I like to Smite, giving us the Twilight Equilibrium buff, Power Word Radiance, and then Shadow Covenant, and then our first thing is Penance. And then we can press 2 Mind Blasts, and then 2 Smite, or basically you want to alternate, so Mind Blast, Smite, because that way you're just alternating back and forth, but that gives you 4 of those spells, which makes our next penance fire additional bolts. So our next penance fires additional bolts. There you go. So let's go and see that again. But what are we doing? We're trying to utilize this buff as much as possible during our Shadow Covenant spell, while also trying to utilize Harsh Discipline as much as possible, or make both of our penances be super strong during our Shadow Covenant. So we're going to be applying Smite. We want to cast, at least have 4 casts of Smite so that we have that Harsh Discipline buff coming into the Shadow Word Covenant ability. So we're going to cast 1. Oh, I guess we should come in with Schism too. So we're going to Schism, and then we're going to cast Smite, Power Word Radiance, and then come into our Shadow Covenant. There's a boosted one. Smite, alternate between Mind Blast and Smite. And then our next one will be boosted as well, because we really want to utilize that cooldown as much as possible. Since we get 2 penances in the Shadow Word Covenant, it's just best to get in the habit of alternating back and forth between Smite and Mind Blast during your Shadow Covenant. That way you get that Twilight Equilibrium, but also trying to have both of your Mind Blasts ready coming into that cooldown, and then just alternating and getting 4 casts off, so your second penance is boosted as well. I feel like I'm talking myself into a corner here, but let's just do it again. Let's do it again. So we want to have our dot on. We want to get some Smites casted to have that buff coming into the Shadow Word Covenant, and then we're going to Power Word Radiance, Schism, Penance, Mind Blast, Smite, Mind Blast, Smite, and then now our next Schism, or our next penance, will be boosted as well. So you guys can see that we really get this burst window of healing. Now what's great about Discipline Priest is you don't just have to play around that burst window. Since you have 2 charges of Power Word Radiance, it's pretty forgiving. Ideally, you want to always stay with one ready and the other one just recharging constantly. And you want to apply your other atonements in the downtime with, say, your renews, your flash heals, or if you have to in a pinch, use that second charge of Power Word Radiance. But like I said, you can just do a ton of healing outside of your Shadow Covenant by using Smite. You can use 1 charge of Mind Blast, but always try to keep 1 on cooldown for your next Shadow Word Covenant, or your Shadow Covenant ability. I keep saying Shadow Word Covenant. So you can see that you can do a lot of damage, because the whole class is built around doing damage, and you have some pretty unique rotational combos. Now let's go and talk about some of your AoE damage, which you don't have much as a Disc Priest, because as you can probably see, it would be a little bit broken if a lot of your spells did AoE damage and then converted that AoE damage into AoE atonement ticks. But one way that you do good AoE damage is your actual Purge of Wicked, your dot. It's kind of like the Moonfire that Druids have, but like I said, always coming into a fresh pack, you want to make sure and apply this to as many targets as you can before you actually need to heal, and then stop. You don't have to get it to every single target, because like I said, your penance will spread it, but just apply it to as many people as possible, and that will add up a lot of AoE damage over the group. Now, obviously that's not exactly AoE damage, but it's just a way that you can get a lot of damage off on different targets all at once. So you're going to apply that. Now, also, one thing I have not talked about is Holy Nova. Now, this is kind of an amazing ability. You could spam it. I think this is one of my favorite abilities in the entire game. But basically, you just smash the ground, and you'll heal people in a small radius and damage people in a small radius. So let's go and press it. And see, it just does a nice heal. You could spam it if you wanted to, but it's really not good to spam, because as you see, if I just spam it, it does not do a lot of healing, nor does it do a lot of damage. But where it gets kind of actually worth pressing, I should say, is you see here Rhapsody. Rhapsody is stacking up, and Rhapsody makes it to where after basically 40 seconds. Every 40 seconds, whenever you press this button, it'll do so much more damage. And that's why that first one hit so hard. So while that's stacking up, I'll go ahead and talk about Halo. You can choose to take Divine Star, which is basically you send out a boomerang and anything it passes through, it'll either heal or damage. But Halo is just super strong, and it becomes very good because it converts to a shadow spell when you press Shadow Covenant, and it's very good in AoE scenarios. But how Halo works is you basically send out a ring and it just expands out from you. Any allies it passes through, it'll heal. Any enemies it passes through, it'll damage. So let's go and press it. As you see, it does a lot of damage, a lot of AoE damage, a lot of AoE healing. It doesn't do like super amounts of healing, but it is just nice to have in your rotation. But you do have, like I said, some AoE damaging options, but you want to make sure and only press Holy Nova once you have that fully stacked. So boom, it does a nice chunk of healing, a nice chunk of damage, but it's not, like I said, it's not one of those that you can spam. Unfortunately, it would be so cool if you could spam this ability because I just love it, just being just a grenade, walking around as a grenade. But anyways, that's basically it. In terms of your rotation, you basically play around little burst windows. That's why I kind of talked about every ability at once. So once again, just to run you through it, we want to apply Schism and apply Shadow Covenant at the start of doing your damage ramp. You want to make sure that you have Atonement on everyone by either pressing Power Word Radiance as the option 1, or if you need to, just apply it using your Renews, your Power Word Shields, just your single target heals, so that just make sure that everyone has your Atonements coming into your Shadow Covenant. And then you want to make sure Schism is applied because you'll do more damage to the person that's schismed. You want to make sure you have your Purge the Wicked on everyone, and then from there, you just do your damage buttons. Just press your damage buttons. Ideally, you press Penance first as your priority number 1 because it does hit the hardest and it does the most healing, and it's a short enough cooldown to where you can fit 2 into your Shadow Covenant. So let's go ahead and do that. So we have our Purge the Wicked applied, we have Schism applied. Let's get our Smite buff, 1, 2, 3, 4, and then let's press that. We're gonna apply it. I forgot to apply this. And then from there, we just alternate Smite, Mind Blast, Smite, Mind Blast to make sure that we're getting the most damage possible. And then we Penance once more while in our Shadow Covenant. And then we'll even do a Halo while we're still in it. And there you go. So you basically do these nice little burst windows, and hopefully I'll have some clips playing as I go through because I know that I kind of did mess up the rotation on this video. But let's go ahead and talk about some of the major cooldowns. So not just your base rotation, but some of your major cooldowns that you have. But then also talk about the utility. Like I said, you do have the option to just shrug off mechanics. And it's insane how good this class is. So one of their main utility buttons is Pain Suppression. So this reduces all damage taken by a friendly target by 40% for 8 seconds. So it does a 40% defensive that you can put on your tank or any of your allies really, and you can get it to have 2 charges, which is just disgusting. So 40% DR on your tank. This is just such an amazing tank cooldown. So you basically only want to press it on your tank because 40% on a tank is worth way more than 40% damage mitigation on a DPS. But Pain Suppression is absolutely stupid, so broken. You want to make sure and press this as often as possible on a tank, especially coming into big pools. But you also have Power Word Shield. Now, Power Word Shield is just a small shield that you put on someone. Right now, mine is only 40,000, about 40,000. But it also applies Atonement. So if you don't want to use one of your 2 Power Word Radiance coming into a pool, you just know that your tank is the only one taking damage. You want to Power Word Radiance. Press this almost as often as possible because it just adds extra padding to your tank and adds extra, basically mitigation. It's not damage mitigation, but it is mitigation to the damage that's actually affecting their actual health bar. So it's just always nice to apply this as often as possible to the tank. Now, you also are going to be giving mitigation through lenience, which lenience says your Atonement reduces damage taken by 3%. So as you see, if I'm Power Word shielding my tank, not only are they getting just a shield, but they're getting 3% damage mitigation. Stack that on top of Pain Suppression, and they are just beefy as all get out. Now, where this becomes actually just disgusting is one of your main cooldowns is called Power Word Barrier. So this summons a holy barrier to protect all allies at the target location for 10 seconds, reducing all damage taken by 25%. So it is just so amazing. Look, I'm going to press it so you can see it, but it is a 3-minute cooldown, so you only get to see it once. But basically, you summon a circle, and any ally standing in that circle takes 25% less damage. So if you have your Power Word Shield on your tank, you have your Atonement on your tank, they are standing in your barrier, which you do a lot of times in Mythic Plus, use barrier just to make your tank tankier. And then you also have pain suppression. Your tank is just going to be a big ol' beefcake, which is kind of why what made Holy Paladin kind of disgusting recently is that it just made your tank a big old beefcake. But now Discipline Priest is just insane at doing that. So that is not the only utility you have. You also have Mass Dispel. So this says dispels magic in a 15-yard radius, removing all harmful magic from 5 friendly targets and 1 beneficial magic effect from 5 enemy targets. So it's really good in Mythic Plus because it can get rid of a lot of dots. In fact, here is a clip of me just absolutely shrugging off the deep chill dot that the dragons place in Halls of Infusion, which is just it's a mechanic that other classes actually have to deal with. But since Mass Dispel is on a 25-second cooldown, we can basically just shrug that mechanic off. But you just put down a circle, and anyone standing in that big radius, it'll remove a dot from it. It has a cap of 5 targets, but in Mythic Plus, it'll hit everyone. But then you also have Leap of Faith, which basically is what people call grip. So if I Leap of Faith an ally, it'll just pull them to me. So let me Leap of Faith this random AFK Tauren. If it'll let me. I don't think it'll let me. Oh, well, let me just show you guys a clip of me absolutely saving this paladin in my group who stood behind one of the broken ice blocks in Halls of Infusion, and I pulled him right to me back to safety. And it's just such a cool, unique way to have utility that I just thought I had to mention it in this video. But you also have PI, or Power Infusion, which I'm sure you've heard about, but basically it says infuses the target with power for 20 seconds, increasing their haste by 25%. So you really want to line this up with your DPS's abilities. Whenever they pop a 2-minute cooldown, like I guess a good one to mention is Windwalker's invoke the Celestial's Wind, then you can pop Power Infusion, just giving them 25% haste and just making them pop off. This is also insane, and why priests were really played with Combustion, Fire Mage's abilities, just any ability that boosts their damage, like Paladins using Avenging Wrath, things like that. This just is disgusting with, and can really help your DPS do a lot more damage. It also can buff yourself because we take the talent that PI also grants you 100% of its effects, boosting your damage, and packs will die faster, the healing will be easier. It's just such an amazing ability that it's so strong. But let's go ahead and talk about your other major healing defensive, or I guess support defensive, and that is Rapture. Now, Rapture is kind of an amazing ability. It's really cool. So Power Word Shield has a cooldown. So if you look at my Power Word Shield down here, it has basically a 6-second cooldown. But what Rapture does is it basically boosts that shield, and it lets it have no cooldown for 8 seconds. So basically you can spam it on your entire party. So I'm going to press Rapture, and you can just spam your whole party with shields and just apply shields to everyone for the next few seconds. And it's just a really nice way to just pad the stats. You can do this as your first cooldown on a boss, like say that third boss in Halls of Infusion. This is an excellent way to just kind of give you guys a jump start where you can get your damage set up nicely and then pump after that. But it's a 1 minute and I believe, 1 minute 30-second cooldown. So you can press this very often, and it's just a nice panic button since it makes your Power Word Shield, which is an instant cast on. You can cast it on the move button, and it's just a nice way to top everyone up and apply Atonement that way. But that is about everything that I can think of. Let me go ahead and just scan my bars really quick. One thing I did not mention is your defensive is excellent. Desperate Prayer, you want to press this as often as you need it, which is very stupid to say, but you do have a talent that resets this cooldown based on the damage that you take. So you want to just basically press it as often as possible since it's such a good defensive. Your Fade, as long as you take Translucent Image, which this will be the talent tree that I linked down below. I actually had Shackle Undead for this week's affixes, but this gives your Fade just a little bit of damage mitigation. So it's but this is just a way to reduce off threat to yourself, just a unique defensive that they have available. But then also Shadow Fiend, this is something that you want to press like on every boss or just whenever you have your big damage moments where you need to do a lot of damage. But you summon this little goblin thing right next to you, and it'll damage whatever you are attacking. And what's really unique about it is that it actually gives you mana back. So if I just spend some mana casting some spells, and then I press my Shadow Fiend button. We summon him and he'll start auto attacking. That's what these little orange numbers are, and we get mana back every time that he attacks. So it's just another way to do a little bit more damage, but also it's a way to extend your mana bar. But guys, that's basically going to do it for all the basics that you need to pick up this class and start playing it. Hopefully I didn't leave anything very important out, but if you have any questions or if you have anything that you know of that I should have mentioned that I guess I thought I mentioned but didn't, make sure and leave those down below in the comments. If you like this style video, these very quick and depth, hopefully they're in-depth descriptions of all these different classes that I like to play, then make sure and let me know down below, because I love making these guide videos, and I think this priest is on track to be the next top healer. I could just be completely memeing and be way off base, but it has everything that you would want in a top meta healer, because it just applies so much mitigation to the party. But that's gonna do it for this guide. Hopefully it helps some of you guys get started. Let me know if you guys are actually gonna start playing your priest, because I'm gonna start pushing on mine and see how high I can get before the end of the season. But guys, thank you so much for watching this video. I hope that I helped some of you guys. I know I kind of tried to fly through, but this is kind of a complicated class at first, but once you actually sit down and play it, it is very easy, very fun, does a lot of damage, does a lot of healing, and just very rewarding and powerful. So I highly recommend that you guys give it a try. More Mistweaver stuff coming. Don't worry, just because I'm not posting a Mistweaver video today does not mean that I am no longer your resident Mistweaver monk. But guys, my name is LBNinja7. I really appreciate you guys clicking on my video. Make sure that you guys hit subscribe down below before you head out, because every single subscription pushes me closer to my goal, my dream of being a full-time YouTuber. So I really appreciate that. Make sure you guys hit that button and like this video. If you liked it, it'll help others see it. It'll show it to other people. It'll make me come up on your recommended page a little bit more. So make sure you guys hit all those sellout buttons. And guys, that's gonna do it for this video. I really appreciate you. Thank you so much, and I will see you guys in the next one. Take care.